Okay, planning board. We are live. We are recording. Phone lines are opened. Go for it.
Welcome, everybody, to the East Hampton Town Planning Board's meeting, a work session and regular meeting for September 10th, 2025. We have a public hearing tonight. We have a couple of items up on the work session. We have a couple of internal discussions to have, and we have a few additional points of business in our regular meeting. But first, before we start, I just wanted to mention and welcome Katie Rostron, who is our new planning board admin. Welcome, Katie. We're really happy to have you. Thank you very much. We're lucky that Katie moved from further west to our neighborhood and has great experience working for the town of Babylon. So we're really happy to have her as part of our team. So welcome, Katie.
Welcome.
So the first item on our agenda is a public hearing for 267 Accabonac subwaiver. Is the applicant with us? No applicant. Okay. Do we need the applicant? Brittany, we don't, do we need to have the applicant at a public hearing? Okay.
Okay.
They were notified.
Right, okay.
Yeah, Eric's on.
All right,
Is Eric on?
okay.
Hey, it's Eric Shantz for the planning department. You shouldn't need the applicant to be present as long as they provided the service and posting.
Okay. Okay, all right. I don't think we've ever had a public hearing without the applicant, but all right, if that's okay, we'll proceed. And Brittany, service and posting, everything is okay. We're ready to go. Okay. I'm looking out at the audience and thinking there may not be anyone who wishes to be heard on this matter, but I don't know. It's possible.
Do I read first?
Oh, yes, public hearing notice.
That's what I thought. I'm getting it. Take notice that a public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board at Town Hall, 159 Pantago Road, East Hampton, on Wednesday, September 10th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of 267 Accabonac minor subdivision approval pursuant to Chapter 220 Subdivision of Land of the East Hampton Town Code to divide a 58,123 1.3343 acres parcel into two separate lots. Lot 1 will consist of 34,123 square feet, 0.7834 acres. Lot number 2 will consist of 24,000 square feet, 0.5510 acre. The parcel is located on the westerly side of Accabonac Road, East Hampton. Residence zoning district as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton is identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcel number 300-147-6-31.2. Subject application is classified as an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, Part 617 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations, and Chapter 128 Environmental Quality Review of the Town Code. A survey prepared by David L. Saskis, LS, dated revised June 25th, 2025. A common driveway road and drainage plan prepared by D.B. Bennett, consulting engineer, dated revised May 29th, 2025. And a proposed revegetation plan dated May 16th, 2025 are available for inspection at the Planning Board offices, 300 Pantago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York. The public hearing will be held live and in person by the Planning Board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV channel 22 and available for live stream on the LTV website, www.ltveh.org. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. Any person or party wishing to be heard with respect to the foregoing may do so in person or by agent or by attorney, or by call into the live stream or by written comment addressed to the planning board, 300 Pantago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York, 11937. Comments may also be submitted to the planning board by email to planningboard@ehamptony.gov. All comments must be received by the planning board by the date and time of the public hearing, dated August 13th, 2025. Ed Krug, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So with that, has anyone who's come in just recently here for the public hearing to make comment on 267 Acabonic?
Just a note, you should, I couldn't quite hear before. I know there was an exchange, but you should check and make sure the affidavit of service and posting is.
Yes, I asked.
Yes, we did that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want me to give a brief overview?
Yes, go ahead.
Sure. So just very quickly, the map that you see in front of you is the proposed subdivision map. As the public hearing notice mentioned, the lots are Zone B residence, which has a 20,000 square foot minimum lot area. Both lots exceed that as proposed, so no variances from lot area are required. What you can see here is the front lot that has an existing residence, identified as Lot 1. Lot 2 being the rear lot that is currently vacant, with both lots proposed to be serviced by a common driveway. The board should note that there has been public comment received already that had requested that the drainage structures within the common driveway be relocated from the southern property line to the northern boundary of that common driveway. And as you can see on this map, that has been done by the applicants. And if there are members of the public that want to speak and reference the other plans that were noticed, including the common driveway plan and the revegetation plan, I have those available to put up on the screen.
Okay, thanks, Eric. All right, once again, we'll ask, is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this matter? Okay, not hearing anyone. Matt, will go to the phone lines.
Okay, stand by, please. And this is Matt Chapman calling from LTV, just making sure that all lines are good, which they are, and there are 0 additional callers. Thank you.
Okay, Matt. So would you?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. All right, good. So our first work session matter is the McDermott lot line modification. Will, that's you for the planning department. Lou, that is your application. Is a representative for the applicant here? Lori. Okay, great. Thank you. Will.
Good evening, board. So this is an application seeking to modify a lot line between 70 Shore Road and 3 Merrills Road in Amagansett. This lot line modification would transfer 4,889 square feet from Lot 1 to Lot 2 and result in a new Lot 1 area of 14,623 square feet and a new Lot 2 area of 13,731 square feet. Both parcels are located in Amagansett, zoned A residence, and are located within the AE FEMA flood zone near the coast of Cherry Point. Lot 1 is currently improved with a 1-story single-family residence with an enclosed rear porch, deck, hot tub, front porch, concrete walls, cesspool, and detached shed, while Lot 2 contains a storage pod located partially on both properties. This project received a lot area variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals on June 11th, 2025. Previously, Lot 1 was the subject of another ZBA application, which sought setback variances for several structures. Variances for the screened-in porch and hot tub were granted, while the variance for the decking was denied. As part of that approval, the zoning board required a new covenant requiring the applicant to upgrade the existing sanitary system on site should the gross floor area of the residence increase. The planning board last reviewed this application on April 9th, 2024, where it requested additional details regarding the purpose and design of the application. In response, the applicant submitted a narrative explaining they wish to expand the residence on Lot 1 and provide setback relief for the non-conforming deck, outdoor shower, and walkway, which order the lot line to be changed. The Planning Department recommends the public hearing for this application be waived, as the owners of the lots are co-applicants on the project, and the project does not present the potential for significant public concern. Additionally, this project has had a public hearing at the zoning board, which received no public comments. In conclusion, the Planning Department recommends the application is complete and ready for a public hearing, or should the board choose to waive the public hearing, the application will be ready for approval.
Okay, thank you, Will. Ms. Wiltshire, would you like to be heard? Nothing to add. What's that?
I'll hear from the board first.
Okay, all right. All right, in a change of protocol, sure, why not? So we'll go to Lou, who's going to lead our discussion.
Okay, I think, even though the lot sizes are substantially less than what's required by zoning in this area, they're similar in size to almost all other lots in the neighborhood. That's one. There's no increase in density. There's no environmental negative impact that I can see, wetlands such as that. The existing house can be expanded by 342 square feet, but if done so, they'll be required to put in a new IA system. So I think this application is ready for approval.
Okay. Does anyone else on the board have comments on this?
I don't. I'd be in favor of waiving the public hearing.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or any other thoughts on the public hearing? Michael?
I agree with waiving the public hearing.
So do I.
So do I.
Okay. So do I. I like that. Yeah, I think this is a pretty easy one. So Lori, you changed your mind about comment, or you want to just quit while you're ahead, or what? All right. So the one question we have to ask is, does the board agree the application is complete and ready for a public hearing, or does the board wish to waive the hearing, making the application ready for approval? I think we've agreed it is ready for approval. Yes?
Yep.
Everyone?
Everyone, yep.
Okay. All right. Unanimous. We're good to go. Ready for approval. Thanks, Lori. All right. Our next matter for work session is the Haven Hotel renovation site plan. This is Chris for the Planning Department, and Reed is filling in for Bruce, who's not with us tonight on the planning board side. The applicant is here. Britton. Okay, great. All right, Chris.
All right, thank you. So this is the initial review of the Haven Hotel renovation site plan. It's located at 525 and 533 West Lake Drive in Montauk. Here is just showing the property zoomed out in the docks area of Montauk. Zoomed in photo, you can see one lot is currently improved with the existing motel, one is vacant. And I'm just going to give a little background. So the subject parcel is going to combine the two and would be combined to a total of 1.1 acres. And the properties are in the resort zoning district and are also within a scenic area of statewide significance. The properties are near the Block Island Sound, with the nearest portion being approximately 150 feet from the nearest tidal wetland and approximately 67 feet from the nearest bluff and beach. So the background for the proposal itself is that the submission is made to replace or renovate an existing 9,775 square foot, two-story motel building in place and in kind. And then on the vacant lot, they're constructing new pool, spa, cabana, and bathroom building, as well as some accessory structures for the pool area. Currently, the motel has 29 units and the proposal only includes 28. The proposal involves merging the parcels, as I mentioned, and the 533 Westlake is currently improved for the motel, 22 parking spaces, and a swimming pool and pool patio, which are proposed to be removed. 525 is currently vacant, and that's where all the new pool and accessory structures would be placed. The existing parking lot is proposed to be reconfigured to bring all parking spaces within the property boundaries, just showing the existing conditions. Here's the property line shown in black. You can see about 13 of the spaces currently spill into the right-of-way. So the 29 parking spaces include the 2 accessible spaces which are required, and this would bring the site into compliance with its latest site plan approval from 1978. I'll just briefly pull that plan up as well. So that's shown here. One consideration is that if the proposal is adding number of bedrooms is increasing, then additional parking spaces will be required for each additional bedroom in accordance with the town code, and that's at a rate of 1.25 spaces per additional bedroom. Also involved in the proposal is 2 new IA sanitary systems and removing the existing conventional sanitary system. So going over SECRA, State Environmental Quality Review Act, it's a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA and the town code, and there's no additional review subject to SECRA for this proposal. Regarding the reconstruction and the nature of the project, we just ask that the applicant clarify whether the building will be torn down and rebuilt or renovated. The site plan notes that the building will be replaced in place and in kind, which is consistent with the definition in the town code for reconstruction, which is included in our report. And it's important to establish that this is reconstruction as portions of the building are within required setbacks. And these nonconformities are permitted to remain provided that they are not increasing in nonconformity. Regarding the existing and proposed uses, this was originally constructed and received its later site plan approval prior to 1984, when most of the current regulations in the town code regarding applicable use definitions, dimensional regulations, and other standards were implemented. So there are building floor plans in the town records for a 9-unit addition that was approved in 1978. And I'll just quickly show those. There's not much to discuss about them. And the previous certificate of occupancy identifies it as a motel. I'm just going to pull up the floor plans that are proposed for the rest of this discussion. So under current town code regulations, motels, both as a use on the site and in terms of individual units, can be classified as either transient motels or resorts. So generally speaking, any motel is considered a transient motel unless one of the following situation exists, and there's 3 conditions. If it's larger than 450 square feet, it would be considered a resort unit. If it contains any cooking or kitchen facilities, or if it has been converted into a residential co-op, cooperative, or condominium. So it appears based on the town records that all but one of the existing units would be properly classified as a transient motel unit. The exception would be 2 units which were combined to create one approximately 760 square foot unit, and that's pursuant to a building permit from 1970. So the applicant should provide a breakdown of the existing units and their sizes and the presence of kitchen facilities. This should provide us a picture of what's currently approved and existing on site. They can work with the building department to determine this if they need additional documents. So the proposal includes 28 units, and the submitted floor plans did not indicate the proposed gross floor area for each unit to evaluate whether they meet the dimensional standards of 450 square feet or less, which is required for a transient motel. The planning department estimates, and note that all these estimates are approximate, that 25 of the units are about 300 square feet. One unit appears to be 360 square feet. And then they offer 2 3-bedroom units, approximately 700 square feet. So the revised submission should just indicate the gross floor area to confirm those numbers. And based on the submitted information, it is assumed that 2 units will exceed the 450 square foot threshold and would not meet the definition of a transient motel and would instead be classified as resort uses. which I'll get into more in a second. As mentioned, it does appear that one of those units may already be approved at a larger size, that being the one that was combined to create one larger 760 square foot unit. So it appears that the applicants may be reducing the total number of units from 29 to 28 to combine 2 units into one larger 3-bedroom units, but the applicant should confirm that at this time. And should it be the case that any units are to be enlarged beyond 450 square feet, whereas they do not currently exceed that size, then a special permit for conversion would be required under the town code. And a second use also requiring a special permit, the resort unit, would also need to be approved by the planning board. And it's important to note this does not necessarily prohibit any aspect of the proposal, but it must be determined to figure out what approvals will be needed and which standards of the town code will apply. Additionally, the board and the applicants should note that the specific special permit standards for conversion, it appears that if the 2 transient motel units are combined to create one new resort unit, that the underlined section of special permit standards in our report would apply regarding permitted unit densities, which limits the number of units per acre to 12. So that's the discussion regarding the use. The next thing we'll go over is setbacks. I'm just going back to the alignment plan here. So the submitted plans do not indicate the 150 and 200 foot setbacks from the top of the bluff crest across the property, and these should be added to evaluate whether proposed structures will require natural resources special permit NRSP from the zoning board. It appears the northerly proposed IA sanitary system is within 200 feet of the bluff line, which would require an NRSP. To confirm the setback line from the proposed IA system to the bluff line should be indicated on the revised submission. Regarding setbacks in general, property line setback should be indicated for all accessory structures. The subject property has 30-foot setback requirement along Westlake Drive and Wells Avenue. And, excuse me, and a 15-foot requirement for all other property lines. Setbacks are not indicated for the proposed retaining walls, walkways, and poolside patios. Although there are no minimum setback requirements for walkways and retaining walls, the planning board has the authority to control its location during its review, and many of the poolside patios appear to be to the north, appear within 330 feet of the setback requirement, excuse me. The planning board has the authority to reduce the required setbacks for these structures given their accessory, and the planning department recommends that the setbacks be indicated before the board decide to reduce any setback requirements for these structures. Should the board decide not to reduce the setbacks, then an area variance would be required from the zoning board. Next is parking. As I mentioned, the proposal includes 29 spaces, including 2 accessible spaces, and if this was a new project, it would require 40 parking spaces per town code. However, the 1978 site plan approval grandfathered them in at 29 parking spaces. However, if the number of bedrooms existing in the building is increasing, then each additional bedroom should provide parking spaces in accordance with the town code at the rate of 1.25 parking spaces per additional bedroom. Regarding site navigation and traffic, 24-foot drive aisles are offered in each of the 3 parking areas, which is sufficient. A directional pattern should be shown in each area for our submission requirements. And although there is adequate width for 2-way traffic in the southerly parking lot, the planning department recommends the applicant consider moving it to 1-way traffic just to avoid any spatial conflict in this area. The proposal also includes adding a new curb cut. Currently there are 3, and this would be the 4th, which is unusual for any property in the town, particularly one of this size, only 1.1 acres. So the applicant should consider removing the curb cut or just providing a rationale for its proposal. And we just note that the curb cut might need to be provided in order to meet that minimum number of parking spaces required. And if the applicant's going to proceed with it, that the highway department will eventually need to approve that curb cut with a permit. Regarding the sanitary system, these are the submitted sanitary plans and calculations. The population density equivalent for the property, the maximum flow that they could have per Suffolk County sanitary code would be 663.6 gallons per day if this was a new project. The submitted calculations detail that the permitted allowable density load is grandfathered as 3,100 gallons per day as per historical temporary residence permits. Therefore, the applicant should provide a copy of the historical permits or written proof from the SCDHS demonstrating that the proposed flow is permitted. The planning department notes that the motel units without a kitchenette that are less than 400 square feet have a density load of 100 gallons per day, whereas units greater than 400 square feet have a density load of 150 gallons per day. Should the applicant be unable to demonstrate a grandfathered density load of 3,100 gallons per day, a variance would be needed from the SCDHS. The calculations contain some errors. The submitted calculations use a total number of units of 29, whereas the proposal only includes 28. And the calculations also state that 4 of the proposed units are greater than 400 square feet, whereas the planning department estimates that only 2 are. So the calculations should be revised accordingly, and then proof of the grandfathered flow should be provided if they wish to proceed. Regarding the landscaping plan, all 17 species proposed are native, 6 of which are actually approved by the town for revegetation, so we're pleased to see that. I'm not sure why it's not fully loading, but that's okay. Some of the plants are shown near the property line where they may protrude out, but it appears that everything is okay, and the applicant's just reminded that it must be within the property boundaries, and if they want to do anything in the right of way, that the highway department would need to be involved. I'm just trying to see why this froze up on me before I go on to the lighting. It's very strange. I just try to reopen it. So this, I'm going to close the program and reopen it. Sorry for the delay. All right, let me just jump ahead to where we were. There we go.
There it
You
is.
can see it's taken its time to pull up everything. But that's the landscaping plan. Everything's good on that. Won't need to be changed unless other aspects of the site are revised. Regarding the lighting plan shown here, that appears to meet the intent of the planning board lighting guidelines. All the lighting proposed is fully shielded as defined by the town code. It is missing plot by plot illuminance levels. However, you can see these yellow semicircles indicate areas where the illuminance is greater than 0.1 foot candles. And given that none of these areas protrude across the property line, we find the submitted lighting details to be sufficient. Regarding the pool requirements, the applicant's reminded to consult, being very slow, the Suffolk County Department of Health Services for disinfection requirements. Typically, you need extra chlorine given it's open for public use, and approval from that agency will ultimately be required. Not sure what is going on. Anyways, noise, we just want to see some manufacturer specification sheets for outdoor equipment, particularly pool equipment, showing that it'll meet the town code noise standards. And any other equipment outside that would generate noise. Also, setbacks for these equipment to the property line should be indicated. Regarding signage, there's one existing sign in the town right-of-way, which is proposed to be updated with some new text. Given that this is not on the property, it's not really the planning board's authority, so they can go through the highway department to do that, or they can move it onto the property and include that in their submission. Regarding the town consulting engineer, he offered his report, which is attached, and there's only 2 points that are really relevant for the planning board's consideration. One being that the total area of disturbance should be quantified and notified on the site plan, and the second being that there's a drainage galley proposed partially underneath the dumpster enclosure, and that should just be relocated to avoid any conflict with the refuse area. As mentioned, the additional comments are attached for the applicant to review, but are not really pertinent to the planning board's discussion. Regarding the fire marshal findings, indicate that the proposal is not compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. There appears to be no ADA accessibility to the pool area, and there appears to be less than 60 inches between the toilet and lavatory in both ADA units. So these plans should be revised accordingly, and the applicant can contact the chief fire marshal for clarification if needed. Regarding the necessary elements of a site plan, the missing elements that the planning department would like to see added is the lot area, the setbacks. Lot area should be confirmed with the certified survey. Setbacks indicated as mentioned. Nearest fire hydrant should be added. Circulation pattern, as well as elevation drawings for the proposed dumpster enclosure and 2 gates to the swimming pool area. Regarding elements that could be waived, that would be for the existing lighting, which is proposed to all be removed. We don't see the need for having that. And as far as additional approvals go, that would be the architectural review board. The zoning board is to be determined for property line setbacks for pool patios, the number of parking spaces, and whether an NRSP or variance will be required for structures proposed within 150 feet of the nearest bluff and the IA system within 200 feet. Suffolk County Planning Commission review is required since the project is within 500 feet of a county road. Office of Fire Prevention is needed for ADA compliance, and Suffolk County Department of Health Services for the sanitary system, swimming pools, and spas. So in conclusion, the application is incomplete. Pending the issues mentioned, the board should review the list of required items to determine whether items will be waived. The applicant should provide copies of the existing unproposed floor plans with the GFA of each unit indicated, and the applicant should add the 150 and 200 foot setback from the bluff on the revised submission. The applicant is advised that the planning board may only work within the property boundaries. Any changes outside will need to be reviewed by the highway department, which will also review the proposed curb cuts, driveway aprons, should they remain part of this proposal. That's all we have on our end. Sorry for that delay.
Good. Thank you, Chris, for a very thorough report. I appreciate it. Britton, I assume since you're moving toward the front, you would like to be heard.
Good evening, Chairman Krug, members of the board. Sorry, I'm very short. I'm Britton Bistrian, representing 53 Westlake Drive LLC, owners of 53 Westlake Drive in Montauk, which is the site of the existing Haven Motel. I'm joined tonight by representatives of the project team, ownership, Dylan Privis from Blue Flag Capital, Wilson Moreno from Nelson and Pope, engineers, Jonathan Kirby from Workshop as the architect, and as well as Karen Hoag as the land use attorney. As outlined by Chris, the hotel was constructed in the late 1950s. Over the following 25 years, units were added to the property, resulting in the current configuration covered under a 1983 certificate of occupancy. The current owners purchased the property in 2024, and they desired to renovate and modernize the hotel. It had fallen into some disrepair in the last 40 years. The parcel is 2/3 of an acre on the corner of Westlake Drive and Wells Avenue in Montauk. The owners also purchased the adjacent vacant lot at 525 Westlake Drive, which is also zoned resort, with the intent to augment the hotel and its amenities with the additional half-acre lot. The project in front of you tonight is representative of a renovation to the existing 29-unit motel. Very key in that, because I think there was some confusion and there may have been a carryover on one of the plans, but this is intended to be a renovation of the existing unit count on the existing motel. Yep.
May I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
So just define renovation versus reconstruction in your view about
tearing it down or removing more than 50% of the exterior shell materials is reconstruction.
Not doing that.
So we are not reconstructing, we are renovating. As well as the relocation of the swimming pool and construction of new accessory structures, including a hot tub, cabana, pool equipment shed, and additional patio areas. The purpose of this renovation is to both modernize the hotel, make it code and life safety upgrades, make the property handicapped accessible, and install the IA septic system, which I would note in the circumstances, although we're in planning board review, it's somewhat elective in the sense that we're not adding anything that would trigger an increased septic sizing. First of all, I want to say thank you to Chris for a very comprehensive and thorough review memo and on, a reasonable turnaround time, which I think should be lauded because we submitted this is a big application and it was turned around pretty quickly in current timelines at the planning department. So I wanted to recognize Chris for that.
I'd like to hear that. Thank you.
I'm not sure if it's worth going through each item in the memo, but generally stating that we will easily address all of them in our next submission. The big items I would like to make sure that I state on the record is that we are outside of NRSP jurisdiction for this entire project. We will add the setbacks to prove that statement. We are disturbing less than an acre, so we're exempt from a SWIP. The pool is designed with an ADA accessible route, which we will just add further details to, as well as the septic density is conforming. We have the reason for the 28, 29 unit count debate was we were in a parallel track with the health department. This has been there since the 50s, so the records were not entirely clear and we didn't know whether they would recognize the existing 29 unit. They just did issue a health department permit for our 29 units, so we will be submitting that that happened well after we had submitted to this board. So we will be submitting that to the file to prove that we are grandfathered into our existing and proposed 29 unit flow. At this time, I would just say if the board wishes to ask any direct questions of myself or any of the project team present, we'd be happy to address them. I don't know if there's any specific items, but most of them are kind of laundry list things that we can address in our subsequent submission.
That's good.
I am curious about the size, the 450 square foot unit issue that Chris raised, or we're not.
Well, I might have Karen speak to that because if it's CO'd as a 29 unit motel, it doesn't really necessarily matter that we change the definition of motel subsequent to the CO for this property. We're not changing the unit count or the square footage. So I'll have legal.
Hi, good evening, board members. Karen Hoag from Timmy Latham. So just in terms of the number of units on the site plan that Chris had shown, it does reference, it's not so easy to see, but it does reference the 29 units. There was a 9-room addition that was added at the bottom. I don't know if Chris, if you could pull that up, it's written in red. The different room numbers as the room counts rather, in addition,
Looking for the old site plan approval?
The old
Gotcha.
site plan approval, which matches up with the CO.
This one?
Yes, that one. It's kind of hard to read. It's written on the bottom here in blue, the number of room counts being 29, which is also what the health department grandfathered in as well. And when our next submission will, provide the updated floor plans and the square footage so that the board has all that information.
Okay.
But the
going to 28?
proposal is 28 units.
It's 29.
It's 29.
I counted 28, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I believe the proposal is 28 units, and then there's two,
That
three.
That was the debate. We were
Yeah,
not
but-
going to propose the 29 units until we made certain that we could get health department approval, that they would recognize the grandfathered 29. We now have that, so we can amend accordingly.
Because the plan that you submitted showed 28 units.
Correct. And subsequent to that, we received health department approval for the 29 units that exist.
So how does it go from the 28 to the 29? How do you change that? What do you do because the way you got to 28 is 2 units, one on the first floor and one on the second floor, combine the number of bedrooms into one.
Do you want, we'll let our
Architect.
architect speak to that, Jonathan Kirby.
Hi, Jonathan Kirby, Workshop APD. To answer your question, we were proposing in this submission 2 3-bedroom suites, which went from 29 guest rooms down to 28.
Right.
To bring that back up to the 29, we're going to take one of those 3-bedroom suites and turn it back into 2 separate guest rooms.
Got it. Okay.
And that will also go back to having just 1 unit exceeding the 450 square feet, which is what was grandfathered in.
Okay.
So then there's no special permit needed because the one is already grandfathered in. Okay.
Will it qualify as a conversion? Because there was always 29 units, and one of them was always approved over 450 feet. So there is no additional unit that's over 450 feet. So then the issue of conversion won't apply here. Is that what we're saying?
I'll let Karen answer that specifically, but
That's correct.
that's correct. When we resubmit, it'll go back to the one room that's
So
over
we don't have to
450.
worry about conversion.
Okay.
What about the number? Do you want me to ask these questions, or do you want?
Well, yeah, are we now getting into, I think we're getting into our discussion, so let's read.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chris Decker. That was a very thorough memo, like Britton said. I appreciate the detail. I think we're off to a pretty good start with this application. I did correspond with Member Siska, and I think he and I are both pretty well aligned on this application. It's my understanding, and I think that was demonstrated this evening, that you're going to merge the two parcels, continue with the same use. You're going to renovate the existing motel. The same number of units, 29, will apply. And it looks, again, you can see the map, the pool, spa, and cabana will be on the new parcel. I like the fact that the parking is increasing from 22 to 29 spots. I think that it actually makes, the configuration makes it safer, especially now if 13 of the spots are poking into the town right away. I'm not so sure that's the safest setup, so I think that's good. And I think we also have to be mindful that the applicant, the date that we have to remember is 1978, and they're kind of grandfathered into some things here that we might not nowadays approve or accept, but again, they're grandfathered into it, and that would be pursuant to the parking and the septic flow. They're upgrading the septic system. There was some question from Member Siska about the septic system for the pool house. Is there a separate septic system for the pool house? And it sounds to me as though the distance to the bluff is not going to be an issue once those measurements are provided. But can you show me where that septic system is for the pool house, please? And while you're there was also a question about the dry wells for the pool and the hot tub. I don't know if that.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Oh, sorry. Good evening, Nelson Pope, Wilson Moreno. So the flow for the bathrooms will be to that northern IA system that you see there.
Okay.
So it's just taking the flow from I guess it'll be male, female, and we're just tying it into the system on the north. So it'll be all gravity fed and then going into the IA system.
Okay. And how about the dry wells? Member Siska had a question about the dry wells for the pool and the hot tub.
Let's see if I can pull up the drainage plan. Around the hot tub and pool you mentioned?
And the pool, yeah.
Sorry, dry wells.
Oh, for the pool plans themselves. Let's see if we have those.
I'm not certain that we have this on that.
That's okay. All right. But that was a question.
The code requires it, and we will amend it with our next submission.
Yeah, no problem. I do somewhat disagree with the planning department in reference to the curb cuts. I think Member Siska and I think that 4 curb cuts make sense here. It sounds as though the planning department's opposed to 4, thinking that 3 is more sensible. But I think 4 seems to make sense to me and to Member Siska. So that's my overview. And
Great.
That's
Good.
it now.
Thanks, Reed.
Yeah.
Mike, do you have any other comments or
No.
questions?
No. The curb cut question is interesting to me, but nothing other than that. And then resolving the laundry list of points.
Okay. Yeah, we have
I just want to state that we are open to the suggestion of making the 2 at the south one way. I think that would make sense. Part of the reason that the fourth one at the pool area, just from an emergency services perspective, to be able to get an ambulance or something of that nature there, it's not going to be easy if we eliminated that one. The other ones are, they're motel units. You park your car, you take your bag and you walk into and then that's the motor hotel. That's the kind of nature of how the site was originally laid out in the 70s. So I think we'd be open to the one way, but we would like to keep the 4 access points.
Just out of curiosity, Britton, is it there? It's there for emergency access, you say, and also for servicing the pool equipment, I'm sure, right? As well as
And also for just,
have the extra
cleaning
spaces.
and, someone who's coming to clean the pool or to park in a remote location and hump buckets and hoses. And, there's programmatically another use on that parcel and it's entitled to its own curb cut. I mean, we could potentially be proposing a restaurant or other resort use there, and we're really just taking a pool from the hotel site and putting it on the other site. So it's it's vacant now, but it could be a much more intense use.
Good, all right. It's one of the questions we're going to ask as we kind of wrap this up. Jen, any questions or comments?
No questions, but I do agree. I think the 4 curb cuts is kind of necessary, and especially if you're going to do the one-way thing down at the bottom, you need both of those curb cuts. And then, yeah, I think it's a well thought out plan. It's gonna be a nice hotel.
If I can just add to that, the 4th curb cut allows us to get the 29 parking spots on the properties, whereas the existing conditions, some of those spots are actually off of the property in the right of way.
Right.
Working around the existing footprint of the Haven building, that's how we're able to get those additional 3 spots.
Okay.
And yeah, it's important. We acknowledge that it might have been the case where they needed that cut to meet their requirement, and we're more just looking for a rationale. We don't directly oppose the 4th cut as a department.
Yeah. I think we have a rationale now. Thanks for raising the question, Chris. Lou, you had other questions.
Yeah, on the parking, I think I might have misunderstood this, but so the current proposal is 32 bedrooms. And if the existing number of bedrooms are less than 32, meaning that you're increasing the number of bedrooms, then parking must be increased. And this is the part that I didn't understand. Does that trigger a new parking formula site-wide? Or is it just the additional bedrooms that need to be calculated in terms of the additional parking spaces needed?
If they were increasing the number of bedrooms, it would just be for the additional, but based on what the applicant and the architect are saying, it sounds like you're moving toward just doing the same number of units and the same number of bedrooms, but you can clarify.
So we're not increasing the number.
Correct. I think the approval on file is 31 bedrooms. And by switching from the 2 3-bedroom suites to 1 3-bedroom suite, we're eliminating one of those bedrooms to keep the existing 31 bedroom count, meaning we're not increasing rooms or guest room counts as well.
Okay, so as long as you're not increasing the bedrooms, then there's no issue there. And as far as the sanitary system, will you be able to get the proper documentation from the Suffolk Health Department showing that you were approved at 3,100 gallons per day?
Correct. So the process that we went through was called a best fit. Maybe, Wilson can speak to this as well, but we have a current health department permit to upgrade the septic system on the Haven Hotel site alone for 29 units. That gave us our grandfathering on that property. So now we will take that grandfathering and merge the properties together. So we can submit we have an actual health department permit for 29 units on the Haven site alone. So we can submit that to the file. It was just obtained in the last couple of weeks.
Okay. And what about the fire marshal comments that the ADA?
Those are very easy to address. One is we just have to outline the accessible route. We meet all the slopes and everything. And the other one I think was just a graphic issue in terms of the 5-foot circle in that bathroom. So both of them will be addressed. They're conforming in the future submission.
That's all I have.
Good, thanks, Britton and team. So I think we're ready to go to the questions. which will cover a few other things that were raised in Chris's analysis. The first question is, does the planning board agree with the planning department's assessment of additional information that must be provided per town code 255-6-50 necessary elements of the site plan, which are the ones that he enumerated? You know, their details, you know what they are, you know, lot area, setbacks, fire hydrant, location, circulation, and so on. So I presume that you will do that. So do we agree that we want them? Sure.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Does the planning board agree the applicant should provide existing and proposed floor plans with the GFA of each unit and the number of bedrooms indicated? Yes. Reed, you good? Yes.
Yeah, good. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, good. Just checking. Does the planning board agree the applicant should indicate the 150-foot and 200-foot setbacks from the nearest bluff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Does the planning board agree the applicant should make the drive aisle in the southerly parking lot one-way only?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think we all agree we'd like that, and it sounds like you're open to that. Does the planning board agree the applicant should avoid adding a fourth curb cut to the subject property? No. I think there's some discussion on this, or disagreement with the notion.
Yeah.
Well, there's no, is there any other way to get to those 3 parking spaces? I mean,
Not really.
that's the only reason why you need that 4th. And unless there's an alternative on how to get to those parking spaces,
Well, you know, I think the point was also made that it's also a way of getting to servicing the pool and doing things like that as well. I understand that it's uncommon, you know, to have 4 curb cuts on a property of this size, but it feels to me in this case, it's not.
yeah, I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
All right, so we're saying no. We don't believe that you should avoid adding that 4th curb cut. Does the planning board agree the applicant should revise the sanitary calculations to align with the proposed number of units?
Well, the proposed number of units, I think that question was based on a change in the proposed number of units, so.
Exactly.
If there's no change.
Right, no change, so we don't really need to consider that question. Does the planning,
Maybe you can just say revise to align with the submitted plans, so we can just make sure it lines up.
say it again, Chris?
Should the sanitary calculations be revised to align with the submitted plans? So we
Revise
make sure that they.
to align with submitted plans. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do we agree?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Does the planning board agree the applicant should demonstrate that the subject property has a grandfathered population density equivalent that permits a density load of 3,100 gallons a day? Yes, we talked about that. Britain's getting that. Does the planning board agree the applicant should submit revisions in accordance with the town consulting engineer's report? You know, I guess this mainly is about the drainage and the leaching galleys. You know, there might be some conflict there. And what else was he commenting on? I just want to be clear before we answer that question.
The total area of disturbance across the site was the other.
Area of disturbance.
And then there's a full report attached, which they can review, but is not necessarily the planning board's purview.
Okay. But do we agree that you should submit some revisions in accordance with the town consulting engineer's report on those issues? Yes. Yeah, we're all in agreement on that.
Yes.
Okay. Does the planning board agree that the applicant should provide manufacturer's specifications sheets with sound data for exterior equipment to show compliance with town code? Yes. Yes. Yes, all around?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're good.
Thank you very much.
Off to a good start, you guys. Thank you. See you again.
I'm trying to reopen it. The software is being.
Okay. All right, our next matter is the Tandy lot line modification. Sarah, that's you, right?
Yes, good evening, board.
Okay, and that Jen, that's yours, and the applicant is here. All right, great, thanks. We're ready to go.
Okay, this is the initial review of the Tandy application located at 173 Skimhampton Road in Amagansett. These parcels were originally a single parcel, which were previously subdivided into 3 separate lots via an approved and filed subdivision map in 2011. 2 reserved areas were also created as part of the subdivision, one at 12,521 square feet and one at 8,969 square feet. The application proposes merging lots 2 and 3 into a single lot, resulting in one lot of 80,052 square feet, while lot 1 would remain at 40,000 square feet. Lot 1 is currently improved with a single-family residence and associated accessory structures. This lot is partially cleared with a mix of ornamentals and naturally occurring vegetation. Lots 2 and 3 are wooded and vacant. I can show an aerial. Combining the 2 lots is a type 2 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and Chapter 128 of the Town Code. Since lot line adjustments are classified as type 2 actions, so no further action is needed there. The applicant proposes to reduce the number of lots, which the planning department views as a positive change, as this leads to a reduction in housing density, which also leads to minor reductions in traffic, sanitary flow, and other impacts associated with residential development. The proposed map illustrates that the combination of lots 2 and 3 would result in an L-shaped lot. The board is guided by the town code to create lots that are generally rectangular. However, the planning department does not object to the proposed configuration. The board may wish to discuss with the applicants whether or not 2 rectangular lots of roughly the same size would be more appropriate. A 25-foot access and utility easement of 1,270 square feet is proposed through the town-owned reserved area. It has been the past practice of the planning board to require common driveways and common access for all subdivisions, unless not possible due to constraints or pre-existing conditions. The reasoning behind this is to reduce the number of traffic control points or conflict points, maintain rural aesthetic as opposed to suburban with multiple driveways side by side, and reduce clearing needed for access. The 3-lot subdivision was originally approved with all 3 lots taking access from a common driveway. The planning department recommends that the common driveway be kept and that all utilities, including the water service, be located within the common driveway easement unless the applicants can demonstrate why this is not possible. The lots are zoned as A residence, and a large lot easement would be required for the larger parcel, which is again being proposed as 80,052 square feet. The board may wish to consider this as a potential condition of approval. It appears that all necessary submission elements have been provided. However, the board should discuss the proposed lot configuration with the applicants and the appropriate means of access for the proposed lot 2. Finally, the planning board should also assess whether a large lot easement is required.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Does the applicant wish to be heard? Just please identify yourself for the record.
Hi, Samantha Malone from Tarbert and Lester PLLC on behalf of the applicant. I'd like to thank you, Sarah, for your report. And, you know, this application, the reason that it is being presented is because we have a family here that owns the 3 lots, a father and son. And so they thought that it would be beneficial in order for the community to combine those 2 lots, minimize the density, but for their purposes, they would prefer to have 2 separate driveways. So this is the configuration that would be most beneficial to them. We thought that it would be a beneficial offering to the surrounding neighborhood to decrease the density by having 2 lots instead of 3. We understand that the points that the planning department has made, but would like to hear your thoughts.
Thanks very much.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you mind?
Nope.
We received communication from one of your colleagues in your firm today, and he mentioned that the 2 driveways would result in less clearing than a common driveway. Can you explain how that would occur?
Yes, so if you look at the map, there is a portion of the current existing driveway that would be removed. It's on the northerly lot, so that portion would be removed. And the common driveway, I believe, would be wider than having just two separate smaller driveways, is the reasoning.
It shouldn't be.
Especially if the house is all like that.
Okay.
Is that, what are the minimum width requirements of those two separate driveways? And what is the width of the common driveway?
I do not have that. I have the physical print in front of me. I can check, but I do not have the minimum requirement
Is that a
off the top
question
of
for
my head.
Sarah or Chris?
Either one, whoever has the information.
Right.
So I know the proposed second driveway is proposed to be 25 feet wide. Eric, I'll defer to you if you know the minimum requirement for driveway width, or Chris, if you know.
Yeah, so I don't know offhand. I can look that up. But they're very close in terms of whether it be a common driveway or an individual driveway, the improved and cleared widths for them. I will, and really, you know, we could get exact numbers of what is going to result in less clearing. It's probably going to be very close in this instance. If you do individual driveways, you technically don't need an emergency vehicle turnaround, which removes the need to do that improvement. But if you do still require a common driveway, you don't need to, I mean, if you look at the area that's in red hash mark on the map, you don't need to further clear that to get access to proposed lot 2. So those are somewhat comparable. I know the question was about the improved widths. It's going to be somewhat negligible in that sense. I think the big difference is going to be that if you did individual driveways, you wouldn't need an emergency vehicle turnaround. But if you don't allow them to do individual driveways, they would use the portion that cuts between the two reserved areas and not need to clear the area that's in the red hash marking. But again, I will say a lot of this is sort of a negligible difference in this case.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the
Not right
applicant?
now, no.
Okay. Jen?
Yes, so thank you. Thank you both for explaining all of that. Thanks, Sarah, for the presentation. Thanks, Samantha, for the explanation. My feeling is that a common driveway is really the best case scenario here. And I don't see what the issue would be if the common driveway comes in and then immediately branches off to the right for the second lot, and then, you know, kind of keeps heading towards the house that's already built. I don't see that as a hardship. And I also think, just, you know, I can't really see the dimensions because I'm blind, but I think that if we're talking about clearing another entire driveway up to the place where that proposed second house is, it is going to be a lot more clearing. It's also another curb cut. It's disturbing the reserve area. And that common driveway seems to be from the aerial. Would you mind bringing up the aerial, Sarah? It seems like it's already there. Can you zoom in? So in my opinion, and I'm grateful that the applicants wish to combine 3 lots into 2, and I think that's wonderful. But I do think that the most common sense solution is to keep the common driveway. It seems to be in the interest of good planning.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Thoughts? Reed?
Well, thank you for your comments, and I appreciate Jen's overview. I think I disagree. I see this as a trade-off, and a reduction in density from 3 to 2 is a huge plus, and all the applicant is really asking for is an additional driveway. And according to what Eric said, it sounds to me like it wouldn't be that much of an increase, or perhaps maybe even a decrease. Is that right, Eric? Is that kind of what you suggested?
That's true, but Jen brought up a really good point, which is I'm sort of viewing what I was saying is sort of viewing the 1-for-1 of kind of the minimum improvements you need in the two scenarios. But depending on where a future home is put on lot 2, that's really going to be the biggest determinant of how much clearing you need for a driveway. And as you can see on that aerial photograph right now, the common driveway currently extends pretty far into the rear of what would be, proposed lot 2, currently lots 2 and 3. So if there's a residence put in the rear, it's almost certain that the existing configuration of the common driveway is going to result in less new driveway rather than bringing a driveway up the right-hand side as you look at it. But is as an alternative, if they put a residence up at the front of that lot, up near the reserved area and near Hampton Road, it may result in less clearing overall.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing additional.
Okay. Michael, would you like to comment?
I'm with Reed on this. I don't mind the two curb cuts, and just the way the aerial looks when the front yard is the grass in the driveway, and yeah, it doesn't feel comfortable to me. But
What? I'm sorry.
so the front door and the grass, and then you have the driveway, unless you pass this first 20 feet and the driveway turns right. I mean, is that what we're worried about?
That was kind of what I was suggesting, that, since the curb cut is already made, you pull in and you immediately veer off to the right, and you wouldn't have two curb cuts.
But to Eric's point, even if we have one curb cut and the house is way in the back,
it's already.
You still need to. Would the shared driveway be this existing?
Which is there, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. And versus cutting over and kind of making your own driveway. So you maintain the one curb cut, but you still would
Interesting.
Have to cut down trees and such.
Is the applicant proposing to fill in and revegetate the current paved?
So yes, that portion would be removed. That current portion would be removed. And also, just as a comment, without the second driveway, this application would likely be withdrawn, and they would just proceed with maintaining the 3 separate lots that are separately buildable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They can do that too.
Yeah.
Lou.
Yeah, I'm with Reed and Michael. Also what Eric said is if you have a common driveway, you need the emergency turnaround, which is an additional area. I really, and if the two driveways were negative in any substantial way, I would fight for the common driveway, but I really don't see the downside to having 2 driveways. I mean, these lots were, and also I think we're getting a big remediation here, or benefit, if you want to call it that you're merging 2 lots into one. So I really don't think I think we're talking about an item that's really not that big of a issue with me. So I would go with the 2 driveways and the merging of the 2 lots into one.
Okay. All right. Well, I am a big fan of common driveways. I have to say, I think that, too many curb cuts, too many driveways is very suburban. And this is a really kind of lovely ruralish, stretch of Hampton Road. There's a beautiful reserve along there, and having another cut through that just feels like it would not be on the surface of things. Forgetting any other consideration is really not something that I would support. But, having said that, I think that, what's been discussed in a way of being able to eliminate the emergency vehicle turnaround, bringing that down, revegetating around that area. And, given that the frontage along Skimhampton Road is really quite long, quite broad. We may have an opportunity here if we move the driveway all the way to the other side of the eastern side of the lot. And, it would probably, and I'm not sure where the house is going to go, and I don't believe that's decided yet, but I think that, I would probably change my vote on this one to allowing the two driveways. The issue, though, of access, utility access, however, right? So obviously the house that's there has utility access already. And where does that come from? Does it go across do we know where that happens? It's not going up the driveway that exists. Do we have any idea where they're receiving the utilities from the street?
I do not have that information in front of me. I'd have to look into that.
All right. Well, but in any case, obviously the new house needs access to utilities as well, and it would need to be in the driveway, right? As far as I'm concerned.
I would think, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let us consider a few questions that we have here. And the first is, does the board find the proposed lot configuration acceptable? We actually haven't really even talked about that. But I do. I think it's fine.
I think so too.
It's unusual, but it's fine. Everyone agree?
Yeah.
We're all good on that?
And you also have the large lot easement.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a question coming up here. Should the applicant revise so that a common driveway be kept and that all utilities, including the water service, be located within the common driveway easement? I think we're agreeing to a person. No.
I'm still gonna say, you can keep my vote
For common
for
driveway.
common driveway, yeah.
All right. So we're 4-1 on this issue, right? We don't have 100% consensus there, but four of us are going for two driveways.
Okay.
But I would add to that, though, that, the utilities for the second new house will ultimately need to be in that driveway. Okay. Does the planning board agree that a large lot easement is required? We haven't really talked about that.
I know. This is an interesting concept to me.
Yeah. So, a large lot easement basically means that a lot that is large and potentially subdividable no longer becomes subdividable.
Yes, and I do think that easement or covenant should be required.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
And also I thought it's where a lot, what's the size of this lot, the merged lot? Isn't it 80,000 square feet?
80,052 square feet.
And the zoning for that neighborhood is a residential one acre.
Yeah.
So since it's over, so the 80,000 is over the zoning requirement, that requires a large lot easement.
Or
It's more than 150%. That's what the rule. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's no question it's required.
Okay. So we agree, a large lot easement is required. Yes. All right, so there you have it.
Can I just make a couple points before we stop on this one? Just because there's sort of other comments, post-meeting comments to make. One is that the reserved area has been transferred in ownership to the town board. So just for the board and the applicant, I think ultimately the town board could sort of effectively veto the change. Also, I do believe that since it's not just a lot line modification anymore and that it will require changing the conditions of approval of Skimhampton Woods, I think we'll need to do a modification of the sub-waiver. But the department will talk with the applicant about this and what's needed. But the one other thing I wanted to ask you about, because if the board does want to move forward with it, is whether or not you would hold a public hearing for this. And I point that out actually because with adjustments like this, you have the ability to waive that requirement. But actually, Sarah, if you don't mind, if you could put up the aerial photograph again I would urge the planning board to hold a public hearing just because the location of that second access, as you can see on that aerial photograph, is very close to a neighbor's driveway. So I think that it would be prudent to hold a hearing for this.
Okay. Do we agree on that, Lou?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to err on the side of having a public hearing.
Agreed. I think it's
I agree.
necessary, yeah.
Sure. We like public hearings. Yes.
No one showed today.
Anything else, Eric, that we need to talk about this before we?
That's all I had to add. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Oh,
Eric.
if I
Thank
was-
you.
If I was that neighbor and I had the option of having a driveway or two houses instead of one, I think I know which one I'd
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so our next matter for discussion is the affordable multiple residence.
Do we want to answer these questions? Or
Oh,
Yeah.
did we did.
We did.
We did?
We did, yeah, we answered them.
Where was I?
I don't know.
I was watching the Mets game.
Yeah, affordable multiple residence comments to the town board. So the town board has made some changes to the draft code and Eric's going to review them.
Sure. Yep. So the planning board discussed this in order to send comments to the town board on June 25th. This is the proposed new use in the code to allow multiple residence buildings that are affordable in the affordable housing overlay district. This went back to the town board and they reviewed the planning board's comments. They had a discussion about the draft legislation. They amended it slightly, in part due to comments from the planning board, in particular about energy sustainability. And what I will do quickly is just screen share with you. And I apologize because there's a page break there. But basically there were two areas of the proposed legislation, the standards that were changed. One was the minimum lot area was increased from 20,000 square feet, or roughly a half an acre, to 40,000, or roughly an acre, as a requirement for the use. But then the more sort of involved change was energy sustainability requirements. And you can see I have them up on the screen here verbatim as they would read in the code. But basically, it's another set of standards in the code that where there would be a new building built or a substantial expansion of an existing building to turn it into an affordable multiple residence. That and these are sort of advisory to the planning board that the site plan shall include adequate landscaping and screening, but more unique here, that it be drought tolerant native species, essentially sustainable practices, sustainable landscaping. And then also the requirement that as part of site plan review, the planning board shall consider opportunities for energy efficient design, including solar ready siting and all electric building systems consistent with the New York State Building Code and energy code regulations. So the town board added, made the one change to the minimum lot area requirement, but added those requirements for energy sustainability. So basically, the planning board should have a discussion about those changes. If you have additional comments to send to the town board, form a consensus, and we'll draft those and send those. Otherwise, this matter is scheduled for a public hearing on the 18th of September, and the town board will hear further public comment on it.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. So my take on this is we need to just determine, whether or not we feel as though the two changes that have been made, we need to comment on how we feel about the two changes that were made, right? That's really fundamentally what we're doing here. And, if there are any other changes that we feel strongly about, we should also surface those at this point. Right.
I find the language of the landscaping interesting because it says it shall prioritize sustainable practices. It does not mean they must have or must use sustainable practices for their landscaping.
Well, I think they did that because there might be situations where it just would not be the right thing to do to mandate certain type of landscaping. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but I think that was the thinking that they had. It's the same thing with the sustainable energy efficient design. It's also, it should be prioritized, not mandated, because there might be situations where, like for instance, if you mandate that they put in solar panels, and it's a house that's in a very deeply wooded area,
Right.
where it wouldn't, so that wouldn't make sense. So it's that kind of, that's why they use that kind of language, I think.
I think you're right. I think you're exactly
My
right.
only concern is that they'll say, well, anything can be.
Well, I think it comes.
Nothing's going to be prioritized because it's like shall consider.
Well, I think it comes down to the planning board, because these applications will come in front of us and we would have to use that guidance, that language in how we approach, how we review the application.
I wonder if it's also a cost issue. Maybe,
I think it's that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's more expensive to have it sustainable, but you can look at the longer term that it's probably less expensive over time.
Right,
Yeah.
but the initial capital cost
Right.
determines what your return on investment is, and if the return on investment is not high enough,
In the
you're
short term.
you're not gonna have anyone investing in these kinds of projects.
Do you want to say something?
I do, but I not about the landscaping. The minimum lot requirement for the use was changed. It was doubled, and I think I object to that because I feel like it's leaving out a lot of properties that might actually
Yeah, I think.
be able to, or be willing to, wanting to, desirous of doing this. I think it limits it unnecessarily.
I would keep it at 40,000 right now.
Keep it at
And
40.
the only reason, I don't have a problem with the 20,000. But I think this was also the reasoning behind the board's keeping it at 40 or changing it to 40. We don't know how this is going to be exploited by builders. So if we do the 20,000, and again, I don't have it on the top of my head how it will be nefariously exploited, but if you leave it at 20,000, there's a bigger chance, a wider span, where they can come in and do something that was not intended in the original language or the reason for this zoning code change. So you start at 40. And then if everything works and there aren't any problems, any unforeseen exploitation of this, then, they could look at it again and spread it out further to 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any criticism with what the language is. What I have are fears that it may not be used for the reasons that we're putting this, the town board is putting this into the zoning code. And my big fear is that it's going to be used by certain businesses to create housing, this multiple housing for seasonal workers. And that wasn't the intent here.
That's not the intent.
And again, I keep repeating this, there's nothing wrong with housing seasonal workers. And if those seasonal workers are full-time community, ordinary folks that live here, residents of East Hampton, that's fine. But if it's transient type workers, that's not what this is intending to correct.
I agree with all that. I don't know. I feel like it's just limiting, but maybe you're right. Maybe it can be, piloted at 40,000 square feet and then, re-looked at in 5 years.
Or even sooner. Eric, do you agree with that? Is that something that the way it was formulated, something that can be looked at again in the future?
Yeah.
The 40,000.
And the town board touched upon a lot of the points that you were making. I think I mean, I don't know that this is exactly where they were going, but I think that they felt that if you have a larger property, that there's sort of less likelihood of something, something being sort of forced onto a property that is not large enough for the use. So I think they felt that an acre is probably a better starting point, just because a 20,000 square foot lot is a small lot, and it has to be done right as far as, if you're going to put an additional unit of housing on it. So I think that's mainly where they were coming from, with changing the minimum lot area requirement.
Yeah, that sounds like.
And I mean, there are, so many restrictions now that the GFA has been amended and all that. So maybe it just won't work for a 20,000 square foot lot. I don't know. That was just my jerk.
You guys have any comments on the lot size?
I agree with the prior comments. I'd keep it at 40 and revisit it in a few years.
Yeah. All right, and that's sort of my point of view too. I think I do agree fundamentally with Jen that we may ultimately be missing some opportunity here on smaller lots. But I think for all the reasons that everyone said, starting with 40 is probably smart. And I do think the language around sustainability is appropriate with the prioritizing sustainable practices for cost reasons and practical reasons, right? That it needs to be made.
Yeah.
I
will say, not having a lawn has saved me a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's fabulous. I don't have to mow. I don't have to fertilize. I just have to.
But does this also mean like they're gonna just put in a Leland cypress tree versus,
arborvitae,
or they're gonna go, whatever the least expensive tree that's not native, they'll just drop in there and say, hey, that's what we got to do. You're not forcing it on us.
It's hard to mandate this. It's hard to mandate this. If you, broadly speaking, if you look at individual projects, maybe we have more of an opportunity to comment.
The other point I want to make is if they put the language about the energy efficient design language, I think eventually they should do it town-wide, not just on these types of units. So this could be a starting point to see how it works, see how the applications are reviewed by the planning board, how that, how it's received and how we can encourage people. And if it works out relatively smoothly, maybe that's something that we can look at to expand it further.
Yeah. I think at this level of development, this is not a huge moneymaker necessarily for any builder, being one myself. So I think, we do need to provide some opportunity for people to have some options, right? So that they're not turned off completely to the concept.
And Ed, I just want to point out that language was chosen for a reason. It was considered because with the energy efficient designs, it has to be consistent with the New York State Uniform Building Code. Otherwise, our regulations could be preempted. So the language about prioritizing
sustainable practice.
Yeah, so it really refers to landscape.
Including the solar ready siting, that needs to be consistent with the state building code. And with respect to the landscaping and screening, it does direct the discretion back to the planning board, because it says the site plan shall include adequate landscaping and screening as determined by the planning board. So that is coming back to the planning board for.
Right.
So we're going to say you need to do a sustainable.
You're going to say
I'm going to be the one. Great.
We're going to elect you to be
all those projects are going to be Michael Hansen.
All your crickets.
Yeah. All right, good. Well, I think, have we had enough discussion about that? Yeah. We're okay with the two changes that have been made? Okay. I don't know if there's anything else that we need to discuss around this, or any other comments that are important for us to make at this point. Comments have already, other comments have been
made and incorporated, so I think.
Or made and not incorporated, perhaps.
Depending on the comments.
All right, so we're going to end that conversation then. Thank you, Eric, for leading us on that.
Thank you, Brittany.
And thanks, Brittany, for your input. So our next item for discussion is ex parte communications, which is really something we don't necessarily need to be discussing in a public forum, but, Jen and I felt it was important to do that because there has been a sort of a shift in what has been perceived to be our policy around ex parte communications. So if you will.
So I understand that in the past, it may have been encouraged ex parte communications. So this is just kind of a reminder of best practices from a legal standpoint. Ex parte communications are not considered the best practice as they do create a legal risk for a quasi-judicial board like yourself. So as the planning board, your decisions need to be based on the record before you. And courts reviewing Article 78, they'll scrutinize whether the board relied on information that came before them in the record, or if a board member relies on an ex parte conversation that they had, that decision that was made by the board could potentially be invalidated. So it's important to just remember that ex parte communication should be limited. Of course, they're going to happen in your normal life. Applicants are going to see you and want to speak to you about it. To the best of your ability, if you do have an ex parte communication, you should come back to a public meeting setting and disclose that, what the contents of that communication was. But the safest practice is, if it's not in the record, then it shouldn't be part of your decision-making practice. If applicants do approach you, you could always direct them to planning staff with specific questions if they have a specific question. But when it comes to the merits of the application, make sure that the review is based on the record that comes before you, not ex parte communications.
Brittany, can I ask a question? This came up in our pre-meeting, quasi-judicial board. What exactly does that mean?
So you're making a decision that's not just, it's something that it's going to be looked at by a court. And it needs to be based on the record that's before you, and it can't be arbitrary and capricious. So you're bound by what the town code allows you to do. Mm-hmm. And that sets forth where you can make your decisions, and the record is going to dictate the rationale for those decisions.
Yeah. So we are making judgments, based on the town.
Based on the code.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Exactly.
I have a question. First, I have a comment. I think that Brittany's chair should be about 3 feet.
Yeah, I know. I can't see anyone.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to the table.
I know.
It's too. I feel like a Roman.
So, Brittany, my question is, I think I always try to balance the need for more information so that I can make a better judgment, a more informed judgment, and the ex parte rules that you cited. So if there's an application where the applicant invites me to visit the site, or I take it upon myself to go to the site and ask the applicant to be there to answer some questions, in the interest of me learning more, digging deeper into how I can better judge what's in front of us on that application. What you're saying is, as long as I reveal that discussion in public, it's okay to do that.
What I'm saying is the best practice is not to discuss the merits outside of a public meeting setting. It does occasionally happen. If it does happen, then it should be disclosed. Site visits in general are fine, but you shouldn't be getting into a back and forth on the merits of an application. And asking general questions and receiving an answer to the question could be permissible if you should come to the meeting and disclose what you learned on the record. So it's part of the record that you're basing your decision on as a board.
So you're saying the type of discussion that I have with the applicant on site is really what matters more.
Right.
So if I'm just asking general questions about informational type questions about the site and the application, that's okay. But if I get into the area of discussion where I ask him to give me his reasoning as to why it should be approved, then we're moving outside the bounds of what's acceptable.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you get that, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like the tours that we had of another application in the winter of this year, right? We all went, we had, an attorney with us. It was explicit, we all wanted to see the site, right? But we set it up so that we had, it was not to be discussing the merits of the situation
No, not
at all. It was 100% looking at the site.
But there have been applicants that have invited us, through the years that I've been on the planning board. Not very many, very few, but there are some who say, give me a call me, meet with us, and I'll show you around so that you can get a better idea of what's going on. I'll show you the neighborhood. I'll introduce you to this neighbor and that kind of thing.
That doesn't sound related to the application though. If you're talking about meeting the neighbor.
Well, needing the neighbor to see what that neighbor has to say about the application.
I think, listen, guys, I think we need to be very, very cautious about anything that if the application doesn't go the way of the applicant, and there's a reference made to some conversation as innocent as it seemed at the time, can be brought into an Article 78. We don't want to. We don't want to open ourselves up to that conversation.
I appreciate all that, but also I have visited sites that have brought up new questions. I'm like, why is that there? And I visited the site, I didn't know that was there. So,
all right, so I have a suggestion about that.
Okay.
You visit the site, you make your observations, and in a public setting, when the application is being discussed, you ask the question in a public setting. We've really got to stick away.
Yeah, I agree.
We've got to stay away from having communications because they can easily steer into territory that could get us in trouble.
And also you have to remember the court's going to look at it, whether there is an appearance of impropriety. So even if there wasn't impropriety or if there wasn't a bias, there is always the risk that there's an appearance of impropriety, and that could also invalidate a decision of a board.
Gotcha.
I think that's the key, the appearance of propriety. And I think, I drive by things, I park my car, I peek around, but it's, listen, it's a small town. It is so hard, to not run into people that have applications before the board.
Sure.
My recent answer is, that we're trying to get to everything, because there has been a lot of, discussion about the timing of things. But I think discussing any specific cases is just not a great idea.
Yeah, no, it's this balance between really understanding the application, knowing what's going on, and being mindful of conversations that are not appropriate and could be trouble down the line.
And I also think that if there is a need or desire for us as a board to see a specific application or site, then we should express that to the planning department and have an attorney present, as we did for that other application back in the winter.
Yep. All right. So I think everybody understands that. And I think one of the reasons that we wanted to be clear about this and to actually discuss it at a meeting on the record is that, our website said until 2 or 3 weeks ago, please contact your planning board committee person, right? And then it really should be saying, please contact the planning department, who are really the people who are
That's right.
experts.
I didn't know it was taken out.
It was taken out. Zip, gone.
Was there a reduction in phone calls when it came out?
Yeah, I was wondering why no one's calling.
No one's calling.
What happened?
So anyway, I think we understand how to proceed. So Thank you very much, Brittany. We just have a couple of other things to quickly do, some resolutions. And the first one is you, Spencer Oaks. You can power through these.
Yes. Planning Board of the Town of East Hampton, in the matter of the application of Spencer Oaks preliminary subdivision, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-182-2-5.1 and 7.1, the Planning Board has reviewed a prior determination of the board and desires to modify certain provisions. I have read this resolution and I move for its adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, the next one is Franzetti. That's
Also me.
you again. Yeah.
In the matter of the application of Franzetti minor subdivision, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-13-2-18.1, waiver of subdivision approval. I have also read this waiver and move for its adoption.
Second, is there someone?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. And then we have Hubbard, a resolution to schedule a public hearing.
I can read it.
That's you.
Okay. In the matter of the application of Hubbard Site Plan, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-49-4-12.1, schedule a public hearing. The hearing is hereby scheduled to be held at Town Hall 159 Pentago Road, East Hampton, on Wednesday, October 10, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. or soon after, and this matter may be heard or considered the said application. I move for its adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, scheduled, great. And we have two sets of minutes. First is from the 13th of August. Has anyone read them? Or are there any comments?
Yeah, there's just one comment on the minutes from August 13th. Not a big deal, but on the last page, 267 Acabonic sub-waiver. It's member Jones, I think, is what you meant to say, but minor change. Number C.
Number C.
Where is it again?
Oh, alternate member Reed. Alternate member.
No.
You're a regular member Reed.
We have no alternates. Where is it?
Okay.
And then
Any other
I,
comments or corrections?
No.
Thank you, Eagle Eyes, for that one.
I am. Okay, yeah, no, sorry, yes, we're good.
Okay. So a motion to approve those minutes as amended for August 13th.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, so how about the minutes for the next meeting?
The 27th.
Oh, thought we were all done.
I have also read those. Those look fine.
Everything look good?
Look good.
Yeah.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion to approve them?
I make a motion to approve the minutes for August 27th.
Is there a second? Oh, there's a second. There we go.
Woohoo.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. All right, there's one more resolution, one more motion to make, and I think given that you're subbing for Bruce, you should
Yeah, I was
make
just
it.
gonna
I'll
say
make the
Bruce is not
resolution
here.
that we close the meeting.
Resolution.
Motion.
Second.
Yeah, it's all good. All right, we've done that. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
When is our
everybody.
next meeting? 2 weeks?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm going to.
Was that an all in favor, aye?
Aye. Yes.
Aye.